Did giants once walk the earth? That question has traveled from 19th century newspapers to modern social feeds in the form of photographs, sensational articles, and viral videos. Tonight we examine those claims with the tools of archaeology, osteology, and responsible reporting. We'll look at 3 case studies: a classic hoax, a misidentified fossil, and a genuinely extraordinary human skeleton explained by medical science. And we'll show the step-by-step tests professionals use to separate fact from fiction. When people say giants, they might mean very different things. Sometimes the claim is literal. Skeletons far larger than any recorded person. Sometimes it is error. An animal bone misread as human. Sometimes it is a documented medical condition, gigantism or acromegaly, which produces remarkable stature, but within known biological limits. And sometimes it's a hoax or a media exaggeration designed to sell papers or clicks. This matters for 3 reasons. First, scientific truth. We owe the public accurate accounts of the past. Second, ethical care. Human remains belong to people and communities, and they require dignity and legal protection. Third, cultural impact. Myths distort our understanding of history and can be used to push agendas or exploit communities. So we'll proceed with skepticism, respect, and evidence. Here's how the episode moves. 1 short historical hoax that reveals media mechanics. 1 example where large fossil bones were misidentified, and 1 case where an unusual human skeleton was explained by pathology and careful science. Between these cases, we'll walk you through the lab tests professionals use, show how viral claims spread, and finish with a practical checklist so you can judge similar stories yourself. Our first case is a textbook lesson in how spectacle becomes legend. In 1869, a large petrified-like figure was unearthed on a farm in New York, then displayed to paying crowds as the body of an antediluvian giant. The Cardiff giant, as it became known, attracted national attention, illustrations, lectures, and long newspaper spreads. But careful investigation exposed it as a carved gypsum statue, created and staged to deceive. The Cardiff story shows the formula: a dramatic object, a single sensational source, emotional testimony, and mass media amplification. As Smithsonian reporting later summarized, the Cardiff giant remains one of 19th century America's most famous hoaxes. The hoax teaches simple but powerful lessons. First, provenance matters. Who found the object, exactly where, and with what documentation? Second, independent verification. Can other professionals examine the material? Third, motive and context. Is someone profiting from the claim? When those checks fail, sensational claims are often thinly supported. Our second class of errors is scientific, not fraudulent. A giant human bone that turns out to be animal. North America's Pleistocene past included mastodons, mammoths, and other large mammals with limb and rib bones far larger than those of modern humans. A large femur fragment or a disarticulated rib can astonish a lay observer. In documented cases, collectors or newspapers displayed impressive fragments without proper excavation records. Later, specialists compared bone microstructure, cross-sectional geometry, and collagen signatures, tests that reliably distinguish proboscidea in bone from human bone, and the giant human identification was corrected to a paleontological one. Occasionally, high-profile claims enter scientific debate. Think of the papers and headlines that challenge accepted timelines. In those cases, scientists publish methods and data so peers can test the claims. The Cerutti Mastodon find, for example, sparked robust discussion about early human presence in North America and the interpretation of tool marks on bones. Researchers such as Thomas Desmarais have described how a careful assessment of bone patterns and wear gives insight into whether humans interacted with those remains. As one expert observer put it in press coverage, these patterns taken together have led us to the conclusion that humans were processing mastodon bones using hammerstones and anvils. Not all remarkable skeletons are misidentifications or hoaxes. Some skeletons are genuinely unusual because of biological variation or pathological growth. Pituitary gigantism, caused by excess growth hormone, and acromegaly produce tall stature and distinctive bone markers, widened joints, tooth spacing changes, and characteristic cranial features. A well-documented archaeological case shows an individual of exceptional height whose bones, when measured and analyzed, matched these clinical signs. The correct interpretation required careful osteological work, medical knowledge, and sensitivity for treating the remains respectfully. How does a claim move from a field to a reliable conclusion? Step 1. Excavation with meticulous documentation, mapping, photographs, and sample bags for each fragment. Step 2. Stratigraphy and sediment analysis. Where a bone sits in the layers often tells us its age and context. Step 3. Laboratory tests. Radiocarbon dating for organic remains, stable isotope analysis for diet and mobility, collagen fingerprinting and microscopic structure comparisons for species identification. Crucially, multiple independent methods must converge. A single test is rarely definitive. Convergence builds confidence. A brief note on dating. Radiocarbon gives ages in radiocarbon years, which require calibration to match calendar years. Contaminants, conservation treatments, or mixed deposits can skew results if samples are not selected carefully. That's why labs prefer multiple, well-documented samples, and why peer review matters. Independent teams should reproduce the dates. Good science is skeptical of single, spectacular numbers. Why do these stories go viral? Human attention favors the extraordinary. A striking photograph plus a sensational caption spreads quickly. Social platforms compress nuance. Headlines circulate separated from context and images are cropped or recaptioned. Once a claim gains traction, it enters a feedback loop. More shares attract more coverage, and skepticism often arrives too late. Here's a practical checklist for spotting shaky, giant claims. Ask: 1. Provenance. Is the find documented in place? 2. Peer review. Have specialists weighed in? 3. Multiple tests. Do dates, morphology, and chemistry agree? 4. Sensational-only sources. Is the story coming only from tabloid-like outlets or anonymous social posts? If the answer is no to any, treat the claims skeptically until verified. Responsibility matters. In the United States, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, requires consultation and repatriation for indigenous remains and funerary objects. As the National Park Service explains, by enacting NAGPRA, Congress recognized that human remains of any ancestry must at all times be treated with dignity and respect. When remains are sensationalized for clicks, living communities can be harmed. Museums, journalists, and researchers must follow ethical protocols before publishing or displaying sensitive material. Even without mythical giants, the natural world and human variation hold real wonders. Mammoths and mastodons were immense. Ancient sea creatures washed ashore can produce bones that baffle the untrained eye, and rare medical conditions reveal the diversity of human biology. Science reconstructs these stories carefully, giving us awe grounded in evidence rather than spectacle. So, did giants walk the earth? Not in the sensational, repeated sense that viral posts often claim. Most extraordinary-sounding discoveries fall to careful analysis, hoax, misidentified megafauna, or explainable pathology. If you want our sources and a short research packet with excavation reports and peer-reviewed papers, comment "Bones" and we'll post the full resource list. Subscribe for more evidence-first history, and check the description for links to the museum pages and papers we used in this episode.